Today we have the 2020 AT4 in the shop, and we're continuing on with our round of upgrades that we're doing to this truck to kind of make it a little bit more capable and comfortable while it's hauling a trailer. Now, this truck from the factory is rated to haul a trailer that weighs 18,500 pounds, and if that trailer is a gooseneck or fifth wheel, you can have up to 2,700 pounds pushing down of tongue weight pushing down on the back end of the truck. But the problem is, whenever you do that, the back end of the truck squats down quite a bit. This is a 2500 model. The 3500s have that second stack of overload leaf springs that kind of help maintain or compensate for some of that extra weight. But the bad thing about a 3500 truck is they do ride a little bit rougher when they're empty, and this 2500 rides rough enough as it is. So today we're going to be installing one upgrade that'll help the rear end of the truck support some of that extra weight, but also have a nice smooth ride while the truck is empty. We're installing an airbag helper kit. Now, the last thing that we did on this was a Banks Ram Air diff cover that'll help the rear differential run nice and cool while we're towing. And this summer and spring, summer, and fall, we are going to be doing quite a lot of towing. I do live in Utah, and anytime I go anywhere practically with a trailer on the back, we're going up or down some sort of a mountain pass, especially like to get from here to Colorado. If you go on I-80, I live at 4,700 feet of elevation, and in several spots you have to climb up as high as like 10,000 feet, I believe, on I-80, especially near like Eisenhower Tunnel or wherever that is, right outside of Denver. So anyway, airbags is the install that we're going to be doing today. Everything that I'm about to show you, I picked up from realtruck.com, and I will include some links down in the description so you can check out the parts that I am going to show you, or anything else that they might have for that matter. But basically we have two separate kits here. One is the Firestone RideRite kit, which includes the bags, the brackets, and all the stuff that you physically need to bolt the airbags on and help support the extra weight. And then finally we have the air control kit, which is the air compressor, the switches, the valves, and the wiring that lets you automatically inflate the bags rather than just doing it manually. You still can install the Schrader valve, like these guys right here. So if you want to just hook up to your shop air at the house or gas station, you can just manually inflate them. But we're going to have the air compressor on so we can automatically do it. It's controlled by this little switch panel right here. So you just push it down to deflate, push it up to inflate. And I got the model that has two separate sides. So you say if you have something unbalanced in the bed of the truck, you can independently go left and right. And I also think one of the reasons why I got the dual-sided valve kit is so, like, let's say you're going down the road and you have a heavy trailer that sways the truck a little bit, maybe. In my opinion, or my mind, that kind of makes sense that the valve will stop the air from being pushed from side to side. I'm not sure that's a thing. This is actually the first truck I will have owned that has airbags on it, but that's everything that we got. And it's fairly simple to install. All these brackets bolt right on. This is kind of, I say plug and play, but it's like a no drill installation. We did have to get creative on this side of things because this is like a universal kit. There's no existing brackets, and a lot of guys will just take some zip screws or self-tappers and kind of screw that guy to the bottom of the bed, which if you've followed my channel, you know that I'm not about that zip screw or the self-tapping sheet metal screw. I love to build brackets that take me way too long and are way too elaborate, and that's exactly what I've done. But let me show you where everything's going to go first. So the air controller right here, normally you just kind of stick it underneath the dashboard and be done with it. But the problem with this particular truck is there's just not a lot of space under the dashboard here. Like, we got the full center console, which I love. It's got the wireless charger and all that good, stuff in there. But if I were to put this, say, anywhere along here, just underneath the dashboard, like, it hangs down quite a bit, and I'm worried that I would kick it with my shoe or my foot. So I didn't love that option, and there's no other good places. I even thought about, like, maybe if I had to put it on the other side of the dash, I could do that. But just, I didn't have any good spots that I wanted to do. I even thought, like, what if I install it in the bed? I can just kind of flip up the tonneau cover, but I didn't love that idea. I wanted it out of the weather. So what I wound up doing is in the back seat here, you can kind of see that little red hose. I'm going to have, or actually I already have made a bracket, and it's going to sit right here. So all you're going to have to do is open the door and flip the valve up, flip the valve down, and you can inflate or deflate. It's out of the weather. We're going to have most of the wiring inside the truck here. Basically what I did is, you can see there's a bolt, or there normally is a bolt right here that holds the seat down. I built a heavy bracket that comes out. This attaches to it, and I've got a few holes going through the floor. Everything's grommeted. It's a nice short run for the hose. And because I do have this like factory cargo tray or junk organizer, all I had to do was notch it out and everything kind of fits nicely together. Like, let's see, kind of something like that. That's where it sits. I could have done a little better job trimming this out. But that's where it's going to sit. We still have room for the seat to flip up and down. The door will still shut just fine. And like I said, we don't really lose a whole lot of space. In terms of the air compressor, that is the, I think I'd said this already, it's the heavy duty model. This thing weighs probably 4 or 5 pounds or so. This is going to be mounted to the bottom side of the bed, not the bread, that's something different, using this bracket that I've built right here. And so this attaches to, or each of these attached to a rib on the bottom side with a 1/4-20 riv nut that I installed in there. And then the pump is going to sit on top. That's over here. The pump is going to sit sort of, kind of like that. That actually will sit right above the drive shaft, kind of in that middle space between the front of the axle and the bed, or the cab rather, which at first I was like, well, I don't know if I want it there because it might hit the drive shaft, but when I kind of started taking some measurements, there's still about 9 inches between the drive shaft and the bottom of this bracket that I built, and the axle can't even come close to compressing that far. So we got plenty of space, and that was like the best protected area underneath the truck from like rain and sleet and moisture. Like when I was crawling around under the truck looking, like that area above the drive shaft between the fuel tank and the exhaust is like the cleanest spot under there. So there's very little moisture or dirt or debris that's ever going to get up in there. So it's protected, it's, you know, out of the way, and all I had to do was put a couple of holes in the bottom of those ribs for a riv nut insert, which once again is much better than self-tapping screw. So that's where everything is going to mount. Let's get started by putting the bags on. So we've got the install complete, and I gotta say, I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit how long this whole project actually took. Like installing the airbags, that part went very, very quickly. I think I had both of those mounted in about 45 minutes, if that. Probably like a half hour would be more realistic. There's no drilling, there's no cutting. Basically, you pop the bump stops out, everything bolts right on, and you're good to go. So that was the simple part. But where I took all my time was building all those brackets and mounting things like the compressor and the switches, and then of course routing and protecting all the hoses and wires, because you guys know I'm like way OCD when it comes to that stuff. I like everything to look as factory as possible. One example is like I hate to see those bright red plastic airlines underneath the truck. So I took a little bit of extra time. I wrapped everything with this plastic convoluted tubing. This looks almost exactly like the factory stuff, for the main wiring harness under the truck. I picked this up from Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. It's 100 feet of 1/4 inch, and it fits perfectly over this red plastic hose, and it just kind of makes it blend into the background so you don't see all that bright red. Couple places I wrapped it with this like heat reflective tape, also from Amazon. I think this was like 10 bucks. This was like $14 maybe. So just some really affordable stuff that is good to keep on hand when you're doing any sort of an installation. I also use that for the wiring on this truck. Normally I'll use like this braided braided loom, but on this one I just kind of wanted everything to look OEM, so I used that plastic corrugated tubing. Let's see, other than that, the install went fairly straightforward. I am glad I took the time to mount everything under the seat out back. Not a lot of space there, especially considering like how many hoses and wires and stuff you've got to route underneath there. So right now you kind of open the door and they just kind of sit right down there. If you want to raise or lower the suspension, all you've got to do is just kind of pop the door, hit the button, and air it up. Boom, simple as that. When you want to let it down, just kind of hold the button and it releases the air from the system. But kind of what I was saying about how much space there is, like this plastic tubing is fairly rigid. I probably will actually wrap this stuff with some more black plastic just so you don't see all that red, but this stuff is pretty rigid and it would have been a pain in the butt to route this all underneath the dashboard. We've got the relay mounted inside to keep that out of the weather. The air intake for the compressor is actually, you probably can't see it, but it's like way back there. I just put a hole in the floor and then I ran the tube up through and put that little air filter thingy on the end. Just again, because like, say if it's raining outside or if it's damp or humid and you want to air the thing up, I figure there'll be less moisture inside the cab than, a lot of people just run the filter like, up here behind the gas cap, like on the back side of the bed. I didn't want to do that because there potentially could be moisture in there, where I figure this is like the driest spot that we're going to have. Same thing with the compressor location. Like I talked about that earlier, how the center of the truck above the drive shaft, that's like the cleanest spot that I've seen underneath here. So I feel good about the location. It definitely took a lot of extra time to mount the compressor up there and mount the switches, but now that it's done, I am very, very happy with how this project turned out. Nothing is ever going to hit. There's like 9 or 10 inches between the drive shaft and the air compressor bracket, and there's only about 8 inches between the top of the differential and the gooseneck hitch that's part of the frame. So you're gonna like totally destroy something if you bottom this truck out down low enough to actually hit the fifth wheel or the gooseneck part of the frame. So anyway, happy with how the install went. I put about 90 PSI in it for 5 or 10 minutes just to kind of do a quick leak check. You could see how far up the rear end of the truck came, and when we let the air out, it just kind of returns to normal. No idea how much pressure we got to run when we're towing it. Of course, depends on the weight of the trailer. In a couple weeks, we're probably going to be hauling the ugly truck up to Idaho to do some testing at the 8th Mile drag strip they have there. And then just some things to look forward to on the channel, guys. We have a drag pack coming for the ugly truck, so we're finally putting it on slicks. And I mentioned the test, we're gonna see how well it launches with the new converter and the slicks, because I haven't been back to the track since I put all those things on. And I'm hoping the ugly truck can regain the title of like fastest truck on the channel from the step side, because that one did like a 760 something in the 8th at a same mile per hour as the ugly truck did, but the ugly truck was much, much slower off the line. So I'm hoping the ugly truck will be quicker. You guys got that to look forward to. We do have a few more things planned for the AT4. I want to do one of those Banks monster exhausts on it and their new cold air intake, which I believe was just released. So yeah, then we're gonna be doing the 4L80 swap in the step side. We're gonna be dynoing the step side. actually Monday. So a lot of cool stuff to look forward to, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you don't mind, do me the favor, comment and subscribe. Check out the links in the description for realtruck.com. I do owe those guys a big thank you for providing the parts that we used in this video. I've got some links down in the description for all the parts that we used. Whew, that's a lot of rambling. Thank you guys once again. We'll see you soon.